Chapter 4 The Road to Rask. At first light, Elle and Jack stepped out of Brask. The gate closed behind them. "That book we read. You were right," Jack said. "About?" "The knowledge, it's in my brain, but I can't just do it." Elle shrugged, unconcerned. "Yeah, me too." Elle kicked up a small rock from the ground to his hand. He threw it at such an angle that it skipped across the ground no less than 5 times. "Well, essentially, that book explained the basics and even advanced uses of fire magic for elementalists. Obviously, anger is the triggering mechanism for controlling heat." "Anything you could tell me that wasn't in that book?" Jack asked. Elle shook his head. "I've picked up on a few things over the years. That ordeal you went through just before you came to Brask, you want to talk about it?" "Maybe another time." Jack tried to kick up a rock in the same way. It skipped up. All 4 of his hands missed the catch. The rock hit him square in the forehead. Jack stopped walking. "Ouch!" He clutched his forehead in pain. "Oof! That looked like it hurt." Elle snapped his fingers and pointed at Jack. "Hey, this would be a great time to test your healing magic." Jack continued walking, but held his hands to the lump forehead forming on his head. "That would be a bad idea. I talked to the healer in Brask, and he explained that untrained healing magic is dangerous. If I miscalculate any portion of it, it could do more damage than healing." "Oh," Elle said. "He even insisted that actual surgery is safer than using healing magic. It blew my mind, because the healer back in Pine never hesitated on healing any injury." Jack became thoughtful at remembering Pine and the people that no longer lived there. The same image of Cy taking control of Mill and then burning it all away came to his mind. A tear welled up inside. In his hand, he held the same rock. Elle didn't look at Jack. "Yeah, that healer isn't very good at math." If Elle were looking at Jack, he would have seen the rock in his hand melt. Not from heat, but from his ability to control the ground itself. Jack noticed the rock melting in his hands. He ripped his mind away from the memory to cease his earth control. He tossed the remainder of the half-rock down on the ground. "I've got some healer algorithms in my head." "Oh?" Elle looked his direction. "Yeah, but that's all I have. I don't know how they work, what they mean, when to use them, and what they do." "How's that?" "I only received the math portion from the book. My friend and I both touched it at the same time, and so the information split." Again, Jack couldn't stop the memory of Cy. "What's wrong?" Elle asked. "That obvious?" "Your feet are literally melting the ground." Elle pointed down. "You are beginning to sink there." Jack jumped back with surprise, which freed his feet. He composed himself and continued walking. "I'll tell you what happened." He spent over half an hour going over the events from his last day as a child to collapsing next to the wall of Brask. "Cy, he's a demon. He lived with us for so long. Nobody questioned that." "I've never met a demon. I thought they were extinct." "So did I. I don't know what happened to him," Jack said. A branch broke from a foot stepping on it behind of them. Jack and Elle looked ahead of the trail and saw the yellow-skinned Cy. "Jack, he's a demon. We can't let him take control of our minds. We must escape," Elle said. "Wait, Jack, you don't understand. I need to talk to you." Jack didn't hesitate. He did the only thing he could think to do. His skin turned green, and a stream of magic struck out from him and formed into the beast. "Get on!" Jack made the beast scoop up the 2. Jack wrapped his upper arms around the thing's neck, and his lower arms held onto his companion. The beast galloped away. Its 6 powerful legs moved much faster than any biped could muster. "Jack, no, you don't... I'm sorry," was all that Jack could hear from Cy prior to being out of earshot. "You've seen it in person. Demons can control the minds of others. You did the right thing in getting us out of there," Elle said after they were far enough away that Jack didn't need to concentrate on his charge. With gray skin, his beast could not be maintained. I suppose so. I just wish I knew what was going on. I suspect your Zed will have more insight. El looked back in the direction they came from. Sai was too far back to see. We should keep going. If we linger, we risk him catching up to us. The city of Rask, the capital for the elementalists, was more than a week away by foot. On the journey, they dedicated their time to understanding anger from the book they both read. While they did not master anger, they did gain a good understanding on how to use it. Jack was able to conjure a flame and could even juggle it after 2 days. It wasn't easy to focus due to anger clouding the mind. However, it wasn't difficult for him to hold the last memory he had of Mill being controlled by Sai. That sole image became the foundation for his journey to master the flame. On the way to Rask, a beast attacked them, and Jack was confident enough to throw a fire at it while El fired from his bow. Jack, tonight will be different, El said as the two set up camp. What do you mean, El? Jack ceased preparing a campfire and looked directly at El. The blue moon will be the dominant moon tonight. And that means... Jack continued dealing with the fire while talking. You'll see. I've told you my story, Jack commented. It's going to rain tonight, El changed the subject, but that won't matter. If you don't want to talk about it, fine, but don't dangle half information my direction like that. El waved dismissively. It's just easier to explain by showing you. The magic from the moon is stronger than any cloud. It won't matter if the light touches me or not. Jack sighed, giving up on the matter for the time being. Rain poured down upon their tent. They sat in relative comfort, watching the sun set upon the horizon, just past the clouds. As the final rays descended outside of their view, Jack looked at El. He had questions, but held them. El clenched his pillow as if sudden pain were upon him, or about to be upon him. He braced himself. All Jack could do was stare at him in anticipation. Then his skin started to turn purple, just as he stated. It made no difference that the moon was covered by clouds. He had a look of agony in his clenched eyes. His skin bubbled and all at once shed from him, but not like an animal skin. The skin of El slid off of him. It liquidated right before Jack's eyes. That red liquid ran down his body and pooled on top of his sleeping roll. El breathed heavily from the endeavor. After 4 or 5 large intakes of air, he wiped the droplets of red from his forehead. Half stood in their tent, due to the height, not being as tall as they. Lifted his red liquid-covered bedroll and shook it outside to remove the liquidated skin from his presence. His new skin was indeed blue, matching the new dominant moon. After he finished shaking the bedroll, he brought it back in and looked at Jack. See? I'm blue now. Ugh! Jack was annoyed. That's it? You could have just said that instead of verbally dancing in circles about it. You could have just said, oh, hey, when the dominant moon changes, so do I. See how easy that was for me to say? Jack shook his head, wanting to argue further, but turned around, laying down to go to sleep. Well, it's more complex than that. Sure, with the blue moon out, like, it's simple. I am a time weaver. El, shut up and go to sleep. Suddenly you're all chatty about it when I've been asking about it for days now. El opened his mouth to explain more, but closed it, shrugged, and laid down to sleep. Jack sprang up, facing El. That's gross, by the way. You should have just done that outside. Now you have to sleep on a bedroll covered in that disgusting red stuff. It's stained in there. It's raining, El said, as if the rain were deadly acid. Yeah, and you could really use a bath. You still have bits of red on you. Honestly, if that were me, I would have stood out in the rain welcoming the shower. Oh, the guy who painlessly transforms whenever he wants and has full control over his magic wants to lecture me? Jack would have jumped to his feet if he could stand straight, but remained sitting. It's not easy for me. I barely understand how to use my anger for fire and can summon a beast. Whoop-de-doo. Elle raised a hand to hit Jack. Tears welled in his eyes. Yeah, you could do that. I have to adjust to being a time weaver right when I'm finally used to being an elementalist. It's maddening, you know, and the moment I get used to time weaving, I'll change again. Jack straightened his face. His skin reverted to gray. I'm sorry. Elle sighed. He lowered his hand. It doesn't matter. He rolled over, turning away from Jack. Jack put a hand to his mouth. His skin turned back to red due to the sadness he felt from his companion. Elle, I'm... Save it. I don't want your apology. I've been watching you for a week, and it's so easy for you to just transform. After you master it, you'll have full control and every advantage of every magic. Meanwhile, I'll have to rely on whatever the new moon will be. I'm going to sleep. Jack slowly slid back down to a lying position, without another word, and eventually fell asleep. Mill laughed as he forced the fire from the very air itself to burn down every hut and person. Behind Mill, a malevolent Sai stood on top of the hill that overlooked all of Pine. Sai stood like a shadow, his forearms crossed, yellow magic streamed from his head to Mill. The red mystic pointed their forearms 4 different directions, their face full of hysterical delight. Jack tried to walk to Mill with hands outstretched. Mill, no! Something was preventing him from getting any closer. Jack looked down to see Norg's upper body protruding from the ground, clutching Jack by the ankles. Jack tried to shake the green parent from him, but the efforts were used against him. Norg tugged Jack down. Norg's hands stretched to impossible lengths. They snaked around the immobile, gray-skinned Jack. Wrapping fully around his body, and with a single yank of mountainous, impossible strength, Norg pulled him down into the ground. Jack was consumed by darkness. He woke up screaming. Elle was already outside of the tent, packing up some of their things. You okay? He asked. Jack sat up, still partially in a dream state. He swore he saw bits of yellow in the air. I'm... What? Where? Elle, did you... What happened? Elle shook his head. A nightmare, obviously. Hey, I'm sorry about last night. You were right. I should have just explained it. We've had the time, and I guess I just wanted to. Elle was going to say more, but saw the confused look on Jack's face. Yeah, you've had a rather rough time of it since you ascended, and nightmares are bound to happen with the trauma you went through. Jack stood up and stepped out of the tent. Nightmare? Yes, I suppose that's what that was. He focused his eyes, looking all around. The bits of yellow could no longer be seen as he became fully aware of his surroundings. I'm a time weaver now, so I can't cook. Do you mind making us breakfast? Elle took out of his sack 2 pieces of krana and handed them to Jack. Jack wordlessly took them and walked over to the large stone where he sat them. He picked up one and then focused on that annoying blacksmith. His skin turned red, and he was able to sear the vegetables. They ate in silence, finished packing in silence, and left without another word to one another. There wasn't anything either could think to say to the other. Half of the day passed uneventfully, after which they saw far off in the distance the great city of Rask. Like Brask, this was a walled-in community. From where they were all the way to the city, the land was covered in farms. Wow, so many farms, Jack said. Elle turned his hand over conversationally. Yeah, lots of people live there, so lots of food is needed. That doesn't make much sense. Why not just have a time weaver make it? Elle chuckled. These people are elementalists. They do things their way. If they heavily depended on time weaving, then they wouldn't be very proud magic users. So? Elle pointed at the nearest farm. They just do it the long way. I've never seen that before. How long does it take to grow food? About 6 weeks. Jack cringed. That's too long. That's insane for not doing it the long way. Elementalists are stubborn people. Time weavers are impatient. Every mystic has their major flaw. That's dumb. El nodded his agreement. I've never had this conversation with someone. I've always wanted to, though, but no mystic could really understand. They just refuse to accept or ask for help. Sure, there's a few healers, time weavers, and summoners in the city, but those guys are pretty rare. They only live here because they grew up here. Jack shrugged. They spend months farming, but if they had maybe 10 time weavers, they could produce enough food for thousands in an hour. But I don't understand. Brask and Pine have time weavers for their food. Those are small communities. It's easy for just one person to feed a few dozen people. Rask has thousands of residents. They continued to talk as they started to pass the farms. So, how does that work? Do a few people farm? What does everyone else do? Jack asked. I'm not overly fond of Rask, but it's not a terrible place. Visitors like us aren't shunned, but we aren't on our own when it comes to food and supplies. How will we eat? Jack asked. We will have to be useful. There's usually stuff that needs done. We can earn our keep by working. It's similar to how the blacksmith had you do stuff, but more organized. You see, Rask is quite used to outsiders going there to learn how to master their elementalist magic, to which they can teach you better than anyone. However, the work you'll have to do in order to earn the right to train is exhausting. Not to mention the work you'll have to do in order to earn your food and room. Jack unconsciously slowed his pace, groaning at the prospect of feeling like a slave. El waved for Jack to pick up his pace. It's not so bad. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but you'll learn a lot and master your magic pretty fast. They passed some crops that were unfamiliar to Jack. These strange plants had a stalk that protruded from the ground to about chest length. He pointed to them. What's that? Bell bloom, El said. Do they eat it? Yes, but not like how Krana is eaten. It gets refined into a powder, grind up, and sprinkled on Krana and other food. Why? El smiled. You really have only eaten Krana, frozen and cooked, huh? What's wrong with that? You mean besides boring? My friend, when we get the chance, I'm going to introduce to you seasoning. End of chapter 4.